Ignition sequence start.
Good morning. You're looking at Mission Control Houston, where the International Space Station Flight Control Team members are working with a larger Expedition 63 crew than they had last week, thanks to the historic arrival of a brand new vehicle to the docking port on the leading edge of the Harmony module. Commander Chris Cassidy and his Russian crewmates welcomed two more NASA colleagues to their merry band this week after they rode the SpaceX Crew Dragon from a Florida launch pad to a successful docking and opened a new era in human spaceflight.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. So rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream.
Well, welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Isidro Elena. It's been a historic week in human spaceflight. NASA and SpaceX have launched humans to the International Space Station in an American vehicle from the Florida coast. After several years of collaborative development, training, and other preparations, the SpaceX Crew Dragon lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A on Saturday, May 30th, carrying NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. The spacecraft completed all launch, rendezvous, and docking procedures successfully and officially docked to the International Space Station Sunday morning. When the hatches finally opened, they were greeted by friend and now crewmate Chris Cassidy, along with Roscosmos cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner.
Station, this is the NASA administrator. I will tell you, the whole world saw this mission, and we are so proud of everything you have done for our country, and in fact, to inspire the world.
We sure appreciate that, sir. It's obviously been our honor to be just a small part of this. We have to give credit to SpaceX, the Commercial Crew Program, and of course NASA. It's great to get the United States back in the crewed launch business, and we're just really glad to be on board this magnificent complex.
What do you guys hope to accomplish in your time on the International Space Station?
Well, while we're on board the space station, of course, with the new spacecraft, we do hope to put her through her paces, and so the good ship Endeavour is going to get a lot of checkout over the next week or two here, and hopefully we'll be able to declare her operational, and Doug and I will be able to take some burden off of Chris and his crewmates, Ivan and Anatoly, so that we can keep the space station operating at its peak possibility. We're just proud to be a part of the team that got to bring spaceflight back to the Florida coast. It was nice to see a vehicle come to the forward portion of the space station, but I'll tell you what, that's the only way Doug and I know how to do it.
Currently, Hurley and Behnken are scheduled to stay on the space station for up to 90 days. You can follow all the news on the mission on NASA TV, nasa.gov, and on all of our social media platforms. Keep sending in your questions using the hashtag AskNASA. We'll see you next week.
It was a very busy week at the International Space Station last week, what with the arrival of a new Japanese cargo ship and preparations to welcome two new crew members. But that didn't keep astronaut Chris Cassidy from taking the time to send down this report on station status, just as his two new crewmates were about to launch to join him in orbit.
Hi, welcome to the first and probably the only edition of Some Space News. I'm your host, astronaut Chris Cassidy, live from the International Space Station, flying somewhere 250 miles above our beautiful planet Earth. Let's get on to the segments. I have my notes, which are stored in a bag, but because of the flammability hazard of paper, we take serious safety precautions to make sure that we, the crew, are safe from fire hazard. Therefore, my notes are stored inside this cargo transfer bag with several items, other items that have no relevance to my notes. And on to the news.
And we have liftoff.
It was a successful launch of an HTV cargo ship. Congratulations to our Japanese counterparts as they blast off a beautiful night launch. We watch it here on board as a cargo ship full of science equipment, food, spare parts, everything we need logistically to keep the space station running.
3, 2, 1.
Topic number 2 is the arrival of my friends and colleagues Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley on the first manned SpaceX Crew Dragon. This is a momentous day for our history of manned spaceflight, as it marks the first time we've launched people again from the coast of Florida since 2011 when we flew the last space shuttle. Doug Hurley was on that last space shuttle flight in 2011. He was also my crewmate in 2009 on STS-127. So Doug and I have a deep history of spaceflight together, and I look forward to having both of them on board as part of Expedition 63. By the way, everybody's paying attention to the technical stuff related to that launch. But on board here, we're making sure they have their foods organized, their sleeping quarters is squared away, their clothing is all in order, and their toothbrush is hanging at the bathroom. I got you, Bob and Doug. So on that note, I'll sign off and say goodnight to the whole world. It's a pleasure going around you 16 times a day. We look down with envy, we look down with pride, and we look down with fascination as our planet is there, a spaceship for all of us, home to every one of us. Thank you for watching Some Space News.
For more than 19 and a half years now, there have been astronauts and cosmonauts working on board the International Space Station to advance its mission of preparing for future space exploration, providing benefits to people on Earth, fostering international cooperation and commercialization of spaceflight and space research, and expanding scientific frontiers. The astronauts who, like Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, will come to the station on the new commercial space vehicles will continue to contribute to that legacy. Its position 250 miles above Earth makes the International Space Station a great location to gather scientific research about this planet. This one, right here. There's an instrument on board that gathers information about how plants on Earth sweat, which provides data to scientists who are monitoring the health of Earth's vegetation.
Sweating can be cool. presented by Science at NASA. Did you ever notice how the air can seem cooler when you enter a forest? Humans aren't the only living things that sweat to cool off. When trees and plants sweat, they cool themselves and can cool the surrounding air. Through a process called transpiration, water and nutrients are taken up by plant roots from soil and delivered to the stem and leaves as part of photosynthesis. Some of the water drawn up through the roots exits the plants through pores or stomata in its leaves, hence the sweating. As this sweat evaporates, heat is removed from the air, providing a cooling effect. However, if there isn't enough water available or relative humidity gets too high, the stomata close. The plant heats up, ceases to grow, and can eventually die. Healthy plants provide a number of ecosystem services to humans, including food, recreation, and building materials. Plants also impact Earth's global water and carbon cycles, with plant transpiration accounting for around 10% of the moisture in our atmosphere. A new NASA mission called EcoStress, short for Ecosystem Spaceborne Thermal Radiometer Experiment on Space Station, was successfully launched to the International Space Station on June 29, 2018. EcoStress will literally study how plants sweat, providing the most detailed measurements of plant temperatures available from space and helping researchers monitor the health of Earth's vegetation. Your temperature is one of the first things a doctor wants to know when you go for a checkup, says Simon Hook, EcoStress principal investigator from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It tells your doctor a lot about your condition. Temperature is an extremely useful indicator for plants too. Temperature data can indicate if a plant is stressed and needs more water before the plant collapses, providing an early warning of a possible drought, explains Hook. EcoStress will be able to measure plant temperatures and therefore plant health over areas as small as an individual field of crops. The International Space Station is well suited for the EcoStress mission. Hook says, most Earth-observing satellites are in a sun-synchronous orbit, so they pass over an area at the same time each day, providing us a daily snapshot of that area. Because of the space station's orbit, EcoStress sees the same spot on Earth every few days at different times of day, so it can track changes throughout a typical day. If, during a hot, dry afternoon, plants stop releasing water to conserve supplies, EcoStress will see a change in temperature compared with previous measurements of the same area. It will detect these kinds of responses in farmers' fields and other ecosystems. Data acquired from EcoStress may, in time, help farmers develop crop watering protocols, give researchers a clearer understanding of the effects of drought, and assist water resource managers in planning effective water use. Its data could also reveal the effects of droughts on natural vegetation. For example, to help identify vulnerable types of trees. Forest managers and ecologists will be able to use this information to make better informed decisions. But that's not all. EcoStress temperature data will be useful in a whole host of ways, says Hook. We'll be able to use the same techniques developed to extract plant temperature to look at other phenomena such as the temperature of volcanoes, urban heat waves, wildfires, coastal currents, lakes, and more. That's a whole story in itself. Want to learn more about this cool mission? No sweat. Just visit science.nasa.gov.
That HTV cargo ship that arrived at the station last week was loaded with supplies for the crew members, plus the materials to support dozens of experiments that'll be done during Expedition 63 and beyond. Can you imagine what it must be like for the scientists who spent years of their lives designing and developing an experiment to finally watch it blasted off of the planet? Well, in this episode of the new NASA Explorers series, you can watch as a pair of researchers experience the countdown and the launch of their first experiment going into space.
It's the launch day. It's a little windy out here today. It's a beautiful day. It's a little windy. It's got me concerned. My launch intuition is tingling a bit. I grew up here in Florida. I came to this very spot out here in the Causeway as a kid. My dad would take us to launches all the time. So personally, it's like the kid in me comes out when I come here. It's really cool. I've been on both sides of it. I've been a researcher, and then I've been now helping researchers. And I got to say, it's nervous on both sides. You have a lot of worry, I guess, as a scientist. You have a lot of work involved. As a payload provider, you hope you've checked all the boxes and you've done all that you can do to make everything work for the researchers so that they get good data. It's not easy to put even the most simplest payloads on the space station, but it's worth it. It's worth all the work. I think some of the biggest discoveries we've made and are going to find are up on the space station. It's incredibly important.
Well, we've been really nervous all the way up until right this moment. Nervous that our dreams aren't actually going to happen. But now that the larger countdown is happening and the rocket's all fueled up and everything looks like it's going to happen on time, it's getting really exciting. The last 15-minute window before it takes off. Thanks to Cases for funding this, thanks to Nanoracks for helping us coordinate and making the hardware and coordinating all the data collection too. And thank you for the astronauts who are going to be working on this project on station. So a lot of people worked on this. It's not just the two of us. It's been a lot of people. So we really appreciate all of their support.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff.
As Falcon 9 and Cargo Dragon take flight, bound for the International Space Station with fresh supplies and research, helping to maintain our human presence in space as the station celebrates its 20th anniversary.
It'd be incredible just to watch it no matter what, but knowing that we have a personal investment in it makes a big difference.
Yeah, so it's just knowing that something that we've been working on is on it, and then watching the whole experience makes it just different. It really, I can't find the right words to explain it. Really,
definitely feel like the work leading up to it was worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching it with your best friend.
Yeah.
And like someone that you've been working with for such a long time, and it's just, I think it couldn't get better. That's what I can say.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it with anyone else.
Yeah, that is the exact same sentiment that I have too. So it was really special that we could both be here.
Yeah.
And watch it together.
Our scientist experiment is officially on its way to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Dragon capsule that gives the research its ride to low Earth orbit now must make the last leg of its journey to the hands of the astronauts in microgravity.
What's neat for us is we've got cargo vehicles coming and going to the ISS all the time. It is really like a busy parking lot. Vehicles come in, they stay for a few months, we do a whole bunch of science, and then they leave again. And before you know it, the next one's coming up. Now, what's important to remember is that these vehicles cannot dock themselves to the space station. We have to bring them into the space station utilizing robotics. And what I like to tell people is performing robotics, going out and capturing that vehicle is like a really difficult video game. And so we practice over and over and over again using computer simulations on how to actually capture that cargo vehicle to bring it into station. Once that cargo vehicle docks to station, we do a series of pressure checks and equalize that pressure with the International Space Station, and finally we get to open the hatch. Very quickly the crew starts to move because we've got some experiments that are actually kept at certain temperatures, and we have to transfer them quickly out and keep them at the same temperature there on board the space station.
Elaine and Peristu's research is one of the experiments that requires quick unloading. Stored at a constant temperature to ensure the hydrogels stay intact, it's one of the first items that astronauts must remove from Dragon. Then, with the experiment finally aboard the space station, it's time to conduct science in microgravity.
This was fantastic for me. This is what I do. This means a lot to me as a clinician. And so it was really neat to be able to perform that sort of science on station.
So station 1002 is loaded.
The International Space Station is a working laboratory in space, and solar energy is a key element in keeping it running. Astronauts rely on this renewable energy source to power the machines they need for their science work, and to power the ones they need for their survival. In this demonstration video, astronaut Ricky Arnold explains the process of generating power from the station's solar arrays to produce electricity for the astronauts as they orbit 250 miles above the Earth's surface.
Hi, welcome aboard the International Space Station. I'm astronaut Ricky Arnold, and I'm currently at one of our human research facilities on ISS, where you can see centrifuges, laptops, and other scientific equipment. Across from me is another one of these experiment racks, where you can see ultrasound imaging, more laptops, cameras, other equipment, all stuff that requires electrical power. In fact, we have so much equipment for science and life support that our electrical system has about 8 miles or 13 kilometers of wiring to make it all work. So where does this energy come from? Let's have a look. From here in the cupola and through other windows, you can easily see the solar arrays soaking in the sunlight. They are massive. These 4 solar arrays are made of solar cells, which are purified chunks of the element silicon. Together, the solar arrays contain a total of 262,400 solar cells and cover an area of about 27,000 square feet, more than half the area of a football field. That's huge. When the station is in sunlight, the solar arrays produce about 60% more power than we actually need during the daytime. That extra power goes directly to charging our lithium-ion batteries. Those batteries are essential because they provide the power we need during the 16 night times we have per day here on the space station. The energy our solar arrays can produce is enough to power 40 homes, and we can maximize the power we generate by rotating the arrays in 2 axes, one like a windmill to track the sun through the course of the day, the other to track the sun's inclination, or its angle in the sky. The space station's electrical power system uses direct current to provide energy for our laptops, lights, water recovery system, and science experiments. Thanks for coming aboard today. Now back to Earth.
The fact that most of the members of the Expedition 63 crew have been to the space station before now doesn't mean they don't still get a thrill when they look down on the panoramic view of Earth. Former station crew member T.J. Creamer, who is now a space station flight director, has a few thoughts about the impact of his first views of the natural wonders of Earth from 250 miles up.
And liftoff.
10 seconds.
I think what you get a sense of is just how awesome the universe is and how tiny each of us are in the grand scheme of the wonder that exists out there. Realizing that and realizing just how overwhelmingly huge the Earth is, how overwhelmingly the physics dominates what we're doing, and that we're living in this solar system, galaxy, universe, lets you know that this is someplace kind of special. To be a part of the mission that serves on station, to be part of the mission that goes exploring space into this vastness is simply, one, an honor, but two, almost mind-changing. Mind-changing because we have businesses, we have missions here, we're focused on accomplishing the near-term goal. You get up there and you see the overwhelming portion of the Earth, the vastness that you're exploring into, and you go, wow, there is just so many questions, so much for us to do, so much for us to be able to help our brothers and sisters with. We had a special opportunity on space station because of the window arrangements to be able to seriously get immersed in the imagery. Going to the windows to watch areas that were of great interest. Patagonia, for instance, is just a beautiful, rich environment of earth tones as well as the glaciers, the water. It is just picturesque to the point where you go, I need to go visit that place. You want to find things on the earth because it is memorable but also insightful. For instance, you're going over a tan and you go, oh, you know what, I bet you I'm close to the pyramids. And so you go to the window to take a look at if you are close to the pyramids, and then take some shots that you can take home. There are areas of the world that have volcanoes and you just happen to catch in one photograph 2 or 3 active volcanoes. It's a nice experience to be able to look out the window and go, wow, we really are seeing the living earth living, and being able to be a part of it from such a vantage point. We saw Hades troubles while we were up there. The Gulf oil spill from the horizon occurred while we were up there. A number of hurricanes or tropical cyclones occurred while we were up there. You know there's a ton of energy in there. You know it's heading towards populated areas. It's not beautiful at that point. It's utter respect is what I would categorize it. I got visited by 3 space shuttles. Several of the crew members never looked outside the cupola before. I would bring them one at a time to the cupola. Tell them to close their eyes, open up all the windows, the shutters on the windows, and then tell them to open up their eyes. In that instant, when you're overwhelmed with that vista, when your eyes see nothing but the beauty of the earth, every single one of them, every single crew member that I brought in there for that exposure cried. It is heart-stopping. It is soul-pounding. It is breathtaking.
If you'd like another look at any of these stories we featured today, you can get one. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. Right there are the addresses. And be sure to browse, because there's lots of other cool stuff in there that you'll find about NASA and America's human spaceflight program. If you're going to be out on the internet anyway, check out Houston We Have a Podcast. That's where we talk to folks about their work in all aspects of space exploration. We post new episodes every Friday, and today Gary Jordan picks up our Mars Monthly series with the discussion of how concepts from science fiction can be applied in an actual mission sending astronauts to Mars. Go to nasa.gov/podcasts for this week's episode. You'll also find all our previous episodes in the same place. Also, all of the NASA podcasts, all of which you can also listen to on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud.